I hope, like the rest of you, this chapter is just packed full of great stuff. Um, you let me know maybe at the end of the call if you want me to carry, because I mentioned last week, I think, we had so much from the conference, I was willing to carry some more things forward. I hit a lot of the stuff. I hit most of the things I thought that were important. If you guys want me to highlight anything from the convention, let me know. We can skip a chapter next week. I'll do that. But I wanted to jump back into our book and kind of stay on track with what we're doing with John Maxwell. And anyhow, chapter 15, The Law of the Victory. Um, I think I probably read it. This is my fourth time, maybe. And I don't know why I get so many different things this time around that I three times, but that's kind of the nature of the beast. So let me highlight a few things. Let me go through a few things, then you guys kind of chime in wherever you would like. But uh, on page 179, again, I got the hard copy. So the first page of chapter 15, every crisis has its own challenges. And then he goes on to talk about, victorious leaders have one thing in common. They share an unwillingness to accept defeat. I made a note here. You guys have heard me talk about it before, but every crisis has its own challenges. And it doesn't matter where we go, or what is this? Confirm your speaking language. Okay. I think I'm speaking in English here. But the bigger the problem, the bigger the check. Put that in your notes. The bigger the problem. I learned this a long time ago. And when I was young in this business, I thought, oh my gosh, everything's a catastrophe. Oh my gosh. It's just like, oh, how are we going to make it? How are we going to survive? And Jeff Roberti, you guys have heard me talk about him a lot. The guy who was 24, I was 28 at the time. Company was NSA. He is still with NSA. They sell Juice Plus. Take the product. I have immense respect for Jeff and Cheryl. They were Darcy and I's mentors. And he reached out to me one day, and I was complaining about something that was taking time at the home office in Memphis at the time with this company. He's like, John, the bigger the problem, the bigger the check. He goes, settle down. Things will work its way out, but understand that you want challenges. I call them challenges. I never use the word problem. There's no challenge that I don't have or see that doesn't have 20 solutions to it. You might have to work through 2 or 3, but you'll get there. And boom, it's just not that big a deal. I remember with my kids, they'd be worrying about something. And I'd sit there and I'd kind of smile at them when they're younger. And they're like, what's so funny, Dad? I'm like, let's write it down. Let's write down the very thing you're worrying about right now. We're going to revisit this in 3 weeks, okay? And we're going to see if it's really as big a deal as you really want to make it. 3 weeks, we'd come back. They'd forgot about it, And I'm like, so why are we going to fret? Why are you going to worry through this? And why are you going to let it don't even let it eat up an hour. Don't even let it eat up a minute. People call me quite often because they're maybe struggling through one department, then another department at Legal Shield over in Ada. And I'm like, really? You're going to get that worked up over a pretty simple situation just because one department doesn't know what the other department knows. Work through it, but keep the main thing the main thing. Always control what you can control. Team building requires a big responsibility, and I think that's also what we're going to look at on page 179. Why did I make that note? Okay, well, so right here, every crisis, victorious leaders have one thing in common, an unwillingness to accept defeat. Anybody ever see that movie, Talladega Nights? Okay. All you kind of rednecks that like NASCAR. So I'm not a big NASCAR guy, but I'm kind of a redneck. I live in Tennessee. The old Ricky Bobby saying, if you're not first, you're last. If you're not first, you're last. When my Brittany, my middle daughter, married Quinn's dad had a saying, and Quinn was my son-in-law, who was a quarterback at Princeton, had a tryout with the Dallas Cowboys, and Quinn's dad used to say, "Show me a good loser, and I'll show you a loser." I know, right, Jane? It's like, show me a good loser, I'll show you a loser. And you think about it, so true, you know. At the bottom of the page, this was his finest hour. You can see where a practitioner of the law of victory was Winston Churchill. So as we kind of parlay this together, bear with me, but you'll see as we get into page 180 that on the second page, basically, I don't know if you guys have a hardback or a paperback. In successive years, Churchill continued to speak out against the Nazis. And when Hitler annexed Austria in 1938, Churchill said to his members in the House of Commons, basically, that this may be the only time that we don't have to enter into a dark world. That we can make a decision today to stand up against the tyranny, stand up against the evil that's coming out of Nazi Germany. Hitler wasn't the prime minister yet, but Hitler had a vision. Hitler had an understanding of what he saw. Much like Ronald Reagan in the early days, who stood up in California and saw communism at its very hand in what they were trying to do to the Actors Guild. When communism was trying to infiltrate Hollywood, he witnessed it, he saw it, he experienced it as an actor. He knew the evils of communism, and he was steadfast in fighting it, and that's why we saw an end to the Cold War. But, you just see this, and it goes, unfortunately, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain and the other leaders of Great Britain did not make a stand against Hitler. So here's another leader who is the prime minister who refuses to make a stand. I don't know why he doesn't make a stand. Scared, fear, doubt. Maybe he doesn't believe, Hitler's going to come to Britain, even though he's already taken over most of Europe, but he's not willing to take a leadership role. He's not willing to stand against the evils of the time. They were not prepared to do what it took to achieve victory, and more and more and more of Europe fell to the Nazis. When Hitler indicated he wanted to make a deal with England, Churchill defied him. So now Churchill's the prime minister. Hitler wants to make a deal with England. Hitler said absolutely not. And then Germany began bombing England, and the British stood strong. And all the while, Churchill looked for a will to gain victory. All the odds are stacked against him. Everything is not necessarily in his favor. The Nazis had momentum. The Nazis were steamrolling the majority of Europe. The Nazis had this machine that was just out of control. But this one little island, this one little country, and this one little man, 65 years old, said, "We will not accept defeat." So I have this for your notes, because everything that I read, I hope you kind of do the same. I run parallels to my life or to my business, to Legal Shield, to my marriage, to my parenting, to my charities, to my church, to, the things I like to do to compete. I played college basketball, but I'm older now. My body doesn't take it like it once did. So I've reverted to more things like golf and like tennis and like pickleball and all kinds of other sports. I still like to run. And Joanne, why are you laughing? I see that smile. I can't run the roads, but I can run the trails out in the woods and things like that. I like to mountain bike. Why did I just go down that road? But anyhow, so I like to run parallels, and the same to business. So put this in your notes. Better to act than not act. What are the parallels that you can draw to Chamberlain or to Churchill? Your call. Chamberlain didn't act, and had Chamberlain remained prime minister, good chance you and I could be speaking German today. Good chance communism might be the major player in this world. You know what I'm saying? Another one, ignorance on fire versus knowledge on ice. I hate to bore you with the same story, but some of you have heard, and this isn't a call really for, this is always a call for new people. That's why you want to always be thinking new blood, filling your pipeline. Who can you add to these calls? In NSA, I didn't understand everything. In prepaid legal, I didn't understand everything. Didn't understand the comp plan in prepaid legal. I started telling everybody about the story. I started telling everybody about equal justice under law. I carried the torch. I heard what Harlan had to say. I believe there is an injustice in North America. I want everybody to know about peace and protection. I want everybody to know that equal justice under law is a reality with prepaid legal, today Legal Shield. Didn't understand the comp plan, but I immediately went to work because I was going to take action and not be a person inactive. Ignorance on fire was going to always be better than knowledge on ice. And I'm going to come back and share something to tie it to it, is excellence through execution. So we'll come back to that in a second. But how about this one? Life rewards deserve, not need. Jane and Brenda, I like hearing what you're talking about coming out of the conference. And I hope it wasn't for a week. I don't think it was, because I know the both of you. But you started filling your pipeline, and you guys took advantage of the 3-foot rule, and you started talking to everybody. Okay? So ignorance on fire, better than knowledge on ice. Excellence will come through execution. The first couple of people you talk to might feel awkward. Maybe not with Brenda and Jane. They've been in the business a while. But if you're brand new, you're going to feel a little bit awkward. If maybe you haven't done solutions and you're talking to a business owner, you might feel a little bit awkward. If you haven't been a team builder and you want to be a team builder and you're talking about the leverage aspect of what we've got, might be a little awkward. But guess what? Excellence will come through execution. Excellence will come through execution. What do I mean by that? Just like Churchill, here is this Nazi machine taking over Europe. Here is France. Here is other countries basically succumbing to Hitler and saying, fine, we don't want to fight, take over our country. And this machine keeps rolling and keeps rolling. And Hitler, this little country, this little, or not Hitler, but Churchill, becomes defiant, saying no. I don't know how we're going to win. I don't know what it's going to take to win. I don't know what we're going to do necessarily. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but right now, we're going to take a step forward. And that's got to be a decision that people like us make. We don't have to worry about losing a country and losing tens of thousands of our men and women in war. We have to decide, what are we going to do for our children's children? What are we going to do for our prosperity, our life? What are we going to do for the charities we believe in? Victories are won where? On the field. Brenda can teach me golf all day long, but until I get my skinny little butt out on the golf course, nothing's going to really matter. Right? See how I said skinny butt? See how that works? Right? Jane's laughing. Okay. Victories are won on the field. You got to get in the game. What do you want to do? Do you want to be a Churchill or do you want to be a Chamberlain? Churchill or Chamberlain? Go ahead, Daria.
All right. So what this chapter is actually talking about, I read this book called Power, and it's called Dying Before Going to Battle. When Buddhism is called the winning life. And it's a concept where you have to win over yourself every day, because there's different life conditions that we can experience in a moment, whether it's there's high life conditions, and then you got the lower levels. You got animality, you have hell, anger. So that's why they call us human beings, because you can be whatever you want in any given second. But as soon as you decide, like you said, John, what life condition you decide to pick in that moment, that's what you're going with, and that's what you're leading with. So the field that they're talking about it's the field that's internal that has to be won first. It's never outside of yourself. So when we're looking at the law of victory, it's the behavior of the person we have to look at what's driving this behavior, but it's coming from a deeper source, right? So, and it takes a minute to win over yourself, to get out there, especially if you're shy, to talk to somebody. It's like life is death to some people to talk to others, or public speaking, or whatever it may be. It's not easy, but you have to win over that fear, that doubt. We call it a devil's function, or whatever you want to call it. So that's how I interpret this particular chapter, the law of victory, is winning over yourself, and then it takes on a broader meaning outside of yourself, because like they say, so within, so without.
Yep. Well, listen, you know, it all starts here with our with self. It all starts here, and it goes back to kind of what Darcy talked about in the breakout. You know, you can look at your results today, but it all goes back to actions, feelings, emotions, and what's the very start of it? Mindset. What is the person's mindset? The problem with our society today, the problem with people today, they're being tossed to and fro because of the crap they read, the crap they watch, instead of looking within and saying, hey, I'm created in the image of my maker. I can do all things through, you know, and instead of being subject to what the world thinks, why don't we start thinking what our maker thinks and go out and get after this stuff? Juan, go ahead and I'll jump into something else real quick.
Hello, Mr. Hoffman. Can you hear me clearly?
There you are.
You know, what I took from that chapter, and maybe because I've read the book like so many times, like sometimes I'm reading the chapter and I'm thinking about the other chapters that I've read in the book as well. But, you know, part of the reason why that small island Britain was able to stand was because of Churchill's posture, right? And they were able to hang on long enough for the United States to get involved. And of course, that turned the tide. They didn't just fold like a screen door like France did, right? But I think about that a lot in terms of even as Legal Shield entrepreneurs, right? How important it is for me to performance code qualify, because if I don't do it, it's going to be a false expectation that the other individuals around me will do it, right? For me, I have the attitude that I'm going to PCQ no matter what. And I've only probably missed 1 month out of my entire career back before they had the reset. So I had to start all over again. But since then, I've always had that attitude. So that means I can stand in front of individuals and say, look, I do not care if it's only 2 hours left in a month. We're going to get it done, right? The moment I adopted that attitude towards executive director, like I'm going to ED qualify no matter what. If I have to go out and enroll 50 members myself, I will go out and do it. Now, all of a sudden, I have individuals in the org that are beginning to adopt that same attitude. They're like, well, I'm going to senior director qualify no matter what. I'm going to pursue exec director no matter what. Like, when I think about the law of victory, of course, you know, you can't have that law unless you've made some decisions and come to some conclusions spiritually and otherwise internally. But for me, the greatest value of it is the ideal that, and of course, he's talking about this in another chapter, right? But he talks about the fact that a general doesn't tell the soldiers go out into the road. He goes out into the road, bullets flying. He takes the first step out into that road to get across where they need to get across. And then, of course, the soldiers follow. And that's how I view the law of victory, right? You have to make up in your mind that no matter what, that you're going to win. You're going to achieve. You're going to do the things you set out to do. And that, in turn, serves as an example, a bellwether for the individuals around you. So that's where I've drawn. That's where my mind took me as I was reflecting on that chapter and rereading it again.
Good. Well, look, I love it. And what you did, Juan, is you drew a line in the sand. You know, I'm going to be that executive director as an example. All right. I had to draw a line in the sand numerous times in my life. And one of the things, is that part of the reason I was able to stand is because I could leverage off of Harlan at that time, 26 years ago. Part of the reason I stood as a 28-year-old kid with basically $3 in my pocket was because of Jeff Roberti. He had gone the way before us. And here's a 24-year-old making $300,000 a month. I'm like, it's like the Bannister story, the guy who broke the 4-minute mile, another example. To your point, the country of Britain stood because of one man. And, you read that on page 181, Churchill says, what is our aim? I can answer in one word: victory. Victory at all costs, victory in spite of terror, victory however long and hard the road may be, for without victory, there is no survival. That was simple. That was sweet. That was short. And guess what? You had a whole country and then another country, United States of America, kind of buy into that. So, Daria, good stuff. Juwan, good stuff. Jane, real quick, we'll go to you. And then I got a couple other things right here.
Just real quick off of what Juwan said. And that was when he said about America, fight until the USA finally got in there. Well, the USA was that ED that's coming in and you don't know about. And so that's where we keep fighting. We keep doing the business. We keep executing to become excellent, right?
That's right.
And I love the way he said that.
Yeah. I mean, you take a look at this, and I mean, there were battles after battles after battles that were lost, but nobody quit. Nobody gave up. That's what I mean by excellence through execution. In the execution phase, there's battle lost, there's battle lost, there's battle lost, but excellence comes through losing some battles. Excellence comes through losing more battles, because eventually you learn. It's the creativity. I mean, look, if you get knocked down, it's not the end of the world. It's the end of the world if you don't get up, okay? But you just learn how to not get knocked down again. So put this in your notes on page 180, 181. What we can also draw from this is become defiant. To Juwan's point, become unapologetic. Become defiant in what you've got, who you are, and how you stand in this world. Become unapologetic. You possess, this is just my words, you possess the keys to the kingdom. What do I mean by that? Equal justice under law. Show me something that has a better cause than that. Maybe if they find a cure for cancer tomorrow, we can shift gears, and that's a pretty hell of a great cause. We can rally behind that, but it's not there. Protection and security. This just came to me, and I meant to read this in Baltimore. This is Summit Medical Group. It just came to me before I went to the conference, okay? So I'm going to go back. I am unapologetic for what I do. Equal justice, I am sold out. Was 26 years ago, I am today. There is an injustice in this country and in Canada, and we solve it. Protection and security against identity theft, well, guess what? Dear John Hoffman, Summit Medical Group, PLLC is committed to protecting the security and privacy of our patients' information. We are writing to notify you about a security incident. And I'll just go on. After initially identifying unusual activity, we immediately took steps to ensure the security of the email system and launched an investigation with third party. Okay, so, wow. So my information's been compromised. Okay. Oh, no surprise. No surprise, because it's what we do, right? Am I that concerned? And am I that upset? Oh, they're going to go and they're going to hire Kroll to keep an eye on things. We all know about Kroll. I've got a better system with what we've got, with our identity theft product. Okay, then this just came through. Just another day later, this is Dear John, the Hertz Corporation, on behalf of Hertz, Dollar, and Thrifty Brands, is writing to notify you about an event involving Clio Communications. If you don't think these companies aren't selling our stuff to third-party organizations for a hefty dollar, everything we've got, everything about us is just, crazy. Okay? a vendor of Hertz that may have impacted your personal information of certain individuals. And it goes on to say, involved in this event may include your name, contact information, date of birth, driver's license information, and payment card information. That's a lot of stuff, folks. That's a lot of stuff. I'm unapologetic. I'm sold out for what it is we do. You and I got the keys to the kingdom. I don't sit in Starbucks. I don't sit in places going, well, should I talk to them? Well, what I mean, what if that, I don't know. I mean, and all this mind game goes on. No, I don't do that. So position of strength, that last thing right there in Churchill's message to his nation and to Parliament, what is our aim? I can answer in one word: victory. You guys put this in your notes. No matter where you are in your business, no matter what it is you decide to do, no matter what goals you put in place, no matter the end of mind is for New Orleans next year, begin a year out, build in 90-day cycles around these regionals. What is your goal? But know that you are going to keep this in one respect, and that is total victory. So position of strength in everything that you do, because when you act like Churchill and convey to that small nation, you'll win the war. When you act like Churchill and convey to your team of 3 associates that this is where you're going and this is what you're going to do, you're going to win the war. When you take the position like Juwan and draw a line in the sand and say executive director is a non-negotiable, you're going to win the war. Okay? All right. Page 180. I'm going to kind of skip that since we're running short on time. The thing I like about 182 is, like Churchill and Roosevelt, they both took a bold stance. I mean, now let me stay here a second. Do you sometimes think maybe when you look in the mirror, not so much you guys, but when you look at your team, and they're like, you won't believe what happened to me, and they think the whole world is stacked against them. You think, I'll never forget the call I got from, my good friend Patrick Shaw, and he's like, John, I've talked to everybody in Colorado and nobody's interested. I go, you've talked to everybody, Patrick. Everybody. Wow. That's a lot of people in Colorado. Well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. I said, well, send me your tracking form so I really know what you mean. And what I'm trying to share here is circumstances don't make a man. They simply reveal him to himself. Let that sink in for a minute. Circumstances don't make a man, they reveal him to himself. In this chapter, if you look at Churchill and Roosevelt, victory was their only option. Roosevelt found a way to achieve political victory while winning over polio. What do you think growing up everybody said to him? Oh, dude, you got polio. You can never do this. You can never be that. You can never do this. It would have been so easy for him to accept the world's opinion. Gosh, I got polio. I've been dealt some really bad cards. Oh my, oh me. Feel bad for me. Self-pity, right? Churchill didn't feel that way at 65, becoming prime minister. Roosevelt didn't feel that way with polio. And Roosevelt enters in to become one of the presidents who fights through the Great Depression and then has to enter into the different things that he had to enter into. My point being is life's going to throw us some curveballs. Life's going to throw your team some curveballs. Don't ask for something you don't want. In other words, if you ask for this business to be easier, there wouldn't be any money in it for you and I. Everybody would do it. Don't ask for sales to be easier. Everybody would do it. The highest paid profession in the world is not the Major League Baseball players. It's not the NFL football players. It's not the NBA. It's people in sales. End of story. You can shut down the doctors and, yep, people are going to die. You can shut down the attorneys. Yeah, people are going to have a problem, right? But the world doesn't come to a standstill. Stop the flow of commerce. Stop the flow of goods and services. And within 24 hours, this world comes to a standstill. Who moves goods and services? Who's responsible for commerce? Salespeople. So don't ask for, again, when I'm looking at you guys, I'm looking at you, but I'm also looking at you to look at your team. The fact that we do what we do requires perseverance, requires consistency, requires persistency, means that if we're willing to stay the game and keep the consistency and persistency up, means we'll be able to see a bigger check and a bigger check and a bigger check. So, like Churchill, like Roosevelt, where the odds were stacked against them on a much bigger picture, what's stacked against you and I? I prospect Jane at Starbucks and she says, dude, I don't like the way you dress. I'm like, okay, wow, nobody died. I didn't lose a tank or an airplane in the process, right? I just kind of go on. I think about what I said and I'm like, I need a plan to review here. Maybe I shouldn't show up in a shirt and a wife beater shirt. Maybe I should dress a little more professionally. I don't know if they call it a wife beater shirt or redneck shirt or what they call it, but you know what I mean? We did have a guy in group benefits on our team who went to Chicago, went to a hub office. What do you call the shirt? So I use the right words here. So I'm politically correct. You don't have any sleeves to it. What do you call it? Jeans and a shirt without sleeves, a t-shirt without sleeves, and went to promote our employee benefits to a broker. I happened to get a call from the broker because I knew him. I played golf with one of the vice presidents and he said, John. I'm like, Mark, I'm so sorry. I said, I'm astounded that that happened, but you and I both know there's some weird people in the world. He started laughing. Unfortunately, we were able to keep the account. All right. I'm going to go to 183. Anybody want to shed anything on that? You guys don't know what that shirt's called either. Ha ha. Take that. Why am I the only one laughing tonight? What's wrong with you guys?
You said politically correct, and you already named the shirt. So, I mean, it's
Okay.
not PC.
It's not. But what is that shirt actually called?
Well, we called it a wife beater shirt. That's a
Okay,
terrible
good.
thing.
Then I'm not that
No,
far
that
off.
was a tank top.
Oh, well, for girls, it's a tank
Is it
top.
called a muscle shirt?
Okay.
There you go.
muscle shirt.
That's better.
For men, way back in the olden days, it was a tank top.
Yeah, tank top was a little bit different because, the tank top kind of came down. We wore those playing basketball, stuff like that. But the old muscle shirt, the old wife beater shirt was like, it was not as dressy as a tank top. Anyhow, go ahead, Juwan, or Duran, go ahead.
Great comments, guys. You guys are crazy.
Save me.
I just want a guinea tea too. Italians guinea tea. But today we were busy. We had a conversation with a gentleman who's a broker that we met through the chamber. And John, thank you for being on standby with me. I'm still gonna build rapport with him, but I didn't let that bother me because I knew we were going to another event with another broker who it was just fun going through the process of growing up. Where Scott Viette told us, he said, you fill your calendar up so much that you don't care if people bail on you or whatever they say to you. You just keep moving forward because you get so busy. None of that stuff matters to you no more. And now that posture, even like with the gentleman earlier we was talking about with the business broker, I commanded the conversation and I told him, no harm, no foul. I'll see you at the luncheon for the chamber. So I know eventually we'll get them on the hook. It's just staying close to the fire. That's all. And I want to thank you, John, for just building us up, just to be ourselves and operate in our own integrity and merit and not worry about what people think, feel, or say, because that's them. That's not me. That's not us. We're going in the right direction. And if we can't work with them, we'll work through them. And that's how I see it now. And thank you, because we got this, and we're going all the way. And we have no reason to quit. And I also want to share too that a lot of the posture I get from reading this 21 Laws of Leadership, but also the Think and Grow Rich book. Me and my partner, we're reading the chapter on decision for 60 straight days, and it's really changed who I am. We have 48 days in a row, and it's changed my life. Like, I just don't sit anymore. I get out of bed, I move. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it right then and there. I do not hesitate anymore. The procrastination is getting off of me, where that was one of the main things. I think we struggle in business, not because the business is hard, it's because we're hard. We're hard on ourselves, and the doubt that we have, we put too much doubt on ourselves. But I really believe if we start facing things, like you said, decision is drawn that line, like Jawan said, and all the other leaders said on the call. But once we get to that point where you say, I'm tired of this, enough is enough, and take yourself seriously, it changes. And I'm talking to myself. You guys just get to hear me saying out loud to myself that the old Duran is gone. The old Duran is gone, and we move forward because we have to make a decision. We have desire to be wealthy, but if we don't make a decision to move forward, we're just going to have desires. And this is not a lottery ticket. This takes work. Back over to you guys.
Yeah, Duran, a couple of things here. That's why I promote the Habits Workbook so hard. I think Darcy was masterful in how she put that together, and it's the same with the Slight Edge. Okay, 60 days. You can change just about anything. You know what I mean? You don't have to go 365 days. Just 1% a week compounded over 52 weeks, you're a completely different person. The other thing that Duran's sharing with everybody is he sent me a message today that he has a broker who he wanted to do a 3-way call with. Well, the broker changed his mind and says, I don't want to do a 3-way call. Well, Duran was smart enough to basically help that guy to understand, hey, look, can I keep the door open? And the bottom line is I'm not going to accept a no until you KNOW what we really do. So the other thing too is that people want to see is, and it could be this broker too, could want to just basically, will Duran even follow up with me 2, 3, 4, 5 times? Because eventually with Duran keeping him in the pipeline and the communication flow going, the broker will eventually open up and probably introduce him to some companies, or certainly we'll get him introduced to some other people, broker-wise, who will want to introduce us to the companies. Because again, I'm unapologetic to the people of the world that your companies will be offering this employee benefit. You can either let us do it, or we can do it through you, my friend. But they will be we will get to your HR director. We can do it through you, or we'll eventually get there. So Duran, that's masterful. Just keep it rolling. And I promise you this, we'll probably have a 3-way call with him within 3 to 4 weeks. So who just had their hand up and they just took it down? Who was just
John, it was me.
Brenda. Okay.
Yeah, my book is the 25th anniversary. But what struck me, which I didn't know about Churchill, was he reached out to people that he wasn't fond of, Stalin, and I just didn't know that. And he even helped Stalin and Russia. But he did what he needed to do, to win.
Very good. I mean, that's actually a great point, because a lot of times you need to reach out to people that maybe you don't want to reach out to. That's the same thing in our business. Well, I don't want to call, in my early days, I'm like, well, I didn't want to call this person, or this person, because I was concerned about what they thought or what they would think I was thinking. All of this stuff was going through my head that I eventually had to get out of, and everything that went through my head when I eventually did it never played out to that type of reality anyway. So, on 183, and then Duran, I'll come back to you and we'll wrap it up. On 183, this is where I wrote down excellence through execution. And it goes, and I tell you what, just to make sure I don't miss it, Mandela was another one. Nelson Mandela was just another, oh my gosh, amazing story. Gandhi, another amazing story. The odds are so stacked against, but guess what? You know, our odds aren't anything like what we see with some of those types of things. So the last year, the best leaders feel compelled to rise to a challenge. Leadership is responsible. Losing is unacceptable. Passion is unquenchable. Creativity is essential. Quitting is unthinkable. Commitment is unquestionable. Victory is inevitable. Find a way to parlay that into, you know, your daily method of operation, the things you're committing to, and where you're drawing a line in the sand. And I would just add to that, and I'm going to use this quite a bit because it's just helped me a lot, is there's all of that is excellence through execution. You know, Wilburn Smith put it a different way. What you lack in skill, you make up in numbers. What you make up in numbers, you gain in skill. That's the same thing, excellence through execution. And we can play this off in anything from, you know, our relationships to our children, to our marriages, to our finances, to our business here in Legal Shield. Duran, one last thing and we'll wrap it up. Anything, did you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to share just to understand that we have the best show in town and we can have posture because the broker I'm talking about, he helps folks who are ready to sell their business and also people to acquire a business. He works with some Fortune 500 companies and everything, but none of that mattered to me because I know who I am and I know what I'm part of and the lineage we have with PPLSI and Legal Shield. So it didn't matter what he was saying. Joy sat there and watched me. I controlled that conversation. And then I had another young lady, even though he bailed out, I met a young lady and her wife at the Lowe's. I gave her a business card. She works for an insurance broker, and she was calling me to pitch me on information. Now she's going to look at Legal Shield. So it's okay, guys. We have the best show in town, and no one do what we do unless they do it with us. So back over to you, John.
All right, two questions I'm going to leave you guys with for next week that we're going to open with. Easy questions. What job task do you enjoy doing the most? So we're not going to, this isn't a job to us. I didn't have to go to work today. I didn't get out of bed going, I got to go do Legal Shield. I got out of bed saying, I get to do Legal Shield. When I went to the Baltimore conference, I didn't say, oh, I have to go to a conference. I said, I get to go to a conference. When I'm doing a biz op meeting, an executive luncheon, or I'm going to do a presentation, oh, I have to go do a presentation at Panera Bread today. I get to go. So anyhow, as an entrepreneur, what do you enjoy doing the most and why? Think about that for next week. What do you enjoy doing the most and why? And then number two, this is even a bigger one. What task do you least enjoy and why? Identifying weaknesses are more important than really kind of identifying strengths. Because if you work on your weaknesses, they'll become your strengths. And now you start to parallel other strengths to the strengths you already got. Make sense? So, did y'all get that? Or you want me to repeat it? Everybody good? Okay. All right. Okay. 46 after. All right. I still have 1, 2, 3 pages of notes to share. This truly, this chapter was loaded. We probably should take 2 Mondays on just this chapter. Brenda, you think? All right, let's spend a little bit more time with this. Good. Let's spend a little bit more time with this chapter next week, and we'll see what we got time-wise to get into the next one. So, all right.
Thanks, John.
John?
It was
Thanks,
dandy.
guys. All right.
Will
See
we
you
get
next
to
Thank you,
week.
talk about
John.
the conference next week?
That was awesome.
Hey,
John.
John.
Thank
See
you,
later,
John.
Don't go, John.
All right, y'all. See you
Thank
here in
you.
about a week.
John, don't go yet.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Several people were asking about a review of the conference for next week as part of it, maybe.
More. They want more review.
Yeah, there were
More
quite a
review in the chat.
Yes,
few of the conference. Right. And
yes.
then,
I was flying in from
Gwyneth.
Baltimore.
And then Gwyneth, we are on the chapter on victory, the law of victory. She was asking about that, if she's still there.
And John, I was still flying in from Baltimore that night and I couldn't get on, so that would be wonderful.
It
Yeah,
should
there
be
were like-
posted. That, Bridget, you can get it as, we got it up on the website. Tricia's got all the stuff up.
Okay, I went into Shield Nation 3 different times today and I did not find the archives for this book. What am I not looking at?
Oh, send me a message. I'll find out from Trish if there's something not posted, but I made sure she's getting everything posted a little bit quicker than normal, so.
Okay, dear.
Recordings are up, John.
Okay, recordings are up, so.
I'll
um,
ask Brenda. I'll ask
Okay,
Sure.
Yeah,
all right,
thank you.
okay, all right, y'all. Night, everybody.
Good night. Thank
so
you.
much. Regina, it's great to see you. You're so pretty.
Thank you. You are too. You got your shirt on.
I
Yay.
do.
Yes.
I'm gonna wear it to Mackinac City for a chamber event, networking chamber event with over 75 business owners on Wednesday.
Oh, that ought to be great because they're going to be trying to figure out what
I-
it says.
I know it. I can't wait. I got
Yeah.
one.
Michigan.
Yay.
I used to live in Michigan. That's why I said that.
Hello, everyone. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, how are you?
Fine, how are you? I'm still here at work.
Lucky you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna, I had to run to another building, so I'm gonna head on out. Okay, so you have a good evening. Okay, Steve. Steve, were you at the convention?
No, I missed it. I had some medical issues that I
Uh-huh.
couldn't get out of. So,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
anyway, I missed it. But I did get the highlights.
Okay, good. All right,
Did
Steve.
you?
Yeah, I was there. I was there. That's me at the Baltimore waterfront.
Oh man, I wish I would have gone. I wish I could have gone.
Yeah. All right, Steve, I'll let you go and you have a very blessed evening and I'll see you next week.
Okay, you too.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.